right, we are at Jesse Itzler's Mastermind 2025 in Connecticut. And we're about to talk to 50 entrepreneurs and business leaders about sleep, optimizing sleep, and how to use sleep as a tool to become the best leader and business owner out there.
All right, well, we have another speaker coming up, a close friend of mine. I love listening to him talk because he's so knowledgeable about so many things, but primarily sleep and performance. Amazing story. Started his journey in football late and was a walk-on at Michigan State football team. And through his hard work and his leadership, became captain of the team, a standout on the Michigan State team, and ended up having a career in the NFL. After that, he married also another athlete. His wife, Katie, was an Olympic swimmer, and became an entrepreneur and started with his two partners a company called Dream Recovery. And Dream Recovery specializes and trailblazed the path in actually really created a category of mouth tape that you put on your mouth when you sleep to breathe through your nose and sleep deeper, more efficiently, etc. Now they have a whole product line of eye masks, nasal strips. I'm sure we'll touch on all of that. And I've created this incredible business, this incredible brand, really with no business experience. And he and his partners proudly make their products in the United States of America. They take a lot of care and attention into the products that they make, and they just have do it the right way. Full disclosure, my wife and I, who haven't probably invested in anything in 5 years outside of our own stuff, maybe are investors and are in their company. And that's really because of Todd and his two partners, just love them to death. And also just because how much they care about their brand and their product versus the competitors in the space who, import from China, cut corners, use synthetics, all this stuff that, I really wouldn't get behind. So Todd's going to share a little bit about his story, and I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this.
Thanks, guys. So, so pumped to be here. And kind of ironic after last night. It was a late night, and I'm sure not everybody slept the best. But like Jesse said, I'm obviously super passionate about sleep. And, that stems from me just wanting to help people. Like my parents were teachers. And after I played, being a walk-on, I felt like I had to squeeze every ounce of ability out of myself because I was clearly not as good as everyone else. And it was factual. So I became pretty obsessed with human performance. And that's what I thought I wanted to do, go into the strength conditioning world, be a college strength conditioning coach. And I met my wife. I actually trained my wife in strength conditioning at the end of her career. She's much more athletic and accomplished than me. But about 10 years ago, I got to spend time with a sleep doctor out of UCLA. Her name's Dr. Jennifer Martin. And it was eye-opening. No one was talking about sleep in the way that we are now. And, I firmly believe that sleep is the foundation of all things health and wellness. And that kind of became my mission, to spread that message. I started doing a lot of speaking to companies and sports teams, football teams. And our company kind of came from, one, it's self-serving for products that I've used, and two, from the goal of helping people really reach their highest potential in the day through the lens of the night. And so that's where it stemmed from. It's more of spreading this message and realizing there wasn't products out there that aligned with people like everyone in this room. So I guess I'm going to start with kind of my sleep philosophy and just why I think it's important, and then I'm going to go into how it relates to you guys, and then open it up to questions, because usually there's a decent amount of questions. Everybody sleeps, so it's very relatable. But I think even talking about, with Janine last night, what she was talking about, everything we're going to talk about in this few days is about having the best life you can, right? And I think committing to sleep is actually the most important thing you can do in that process. And the reason I say that is it almost gives you the key to the castle. It allows you to walk in the door and have that great life. It allows you to do the things you want to do, connect with the people, frame things in the correct way. Without sleep, it's an uphill battle. And there's a lot of leaders here, and everything we talked about last night even, all that stuff becomes very, very difficult, nearly impossible if you're underslept. Everywhere from your facial expressions, reading emotion, communicating. Sleep is about the subconscious. It's about your brain's reaction before you can even think about it. So in order to execute any of the stuff we talked about last night, you have to be well slept because people will be able to feel that. And it actually changes your neural pathways. It changes the way you communicate. It changes the way that you interpret emotion. And so with leadership, a lot of people are business owners, leaders in this room, and we don't often think about like sleep, leadership, entrepreneurship. I don't think, honestly, probably the opposite, rise and grind, sleep when you're dead mentality. But they did a lot of studies. And you might have read, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, pretty famous book. And I would say it's pretty accepted that trust is the foundation of a team, a successful team. There has to be trust. And when you look at trust, what is trust? It's kind of actually a hard thing to define, but the way I look at trust is having expectations of someone, expectations of how they're going to react, respond, connect, communicate, and the consistency in which that interaction takes place. I would say that's usually the foundation of trust. And when we look at that, sleep is probably the most important thing you can do as far as being a leader. And I'm not just saying that. They did a huge study in Europe. They looked at CEOs all across, almost 500 companies, and they polled the employees throughout these organizations. And there was a direct correlation with the amount of trust employees felt and the hours of sleep that the CEO got. The less hours of sleep the CEO got, it was a linear correlation. The less hours of sleep the CEO got, the less trust the employees feel, which seems a little wild. It seems like we're picking things out of the sky. But the reason for that is sleep is really where you reset your entire body, including your mind, your emotional regulation, everything to do with your brain. It's actually a physical flush, but a reset. And so when you think about how do I become the most consistent, empathetic, emotionally intelligent person day in, day out, the only way to do that is to have that reset so it's consistent for your employees. As soon as you get erratic responses, you're not communicating as well, all that falls apart. And so I'm going to go into how we actually sleep well, because that's why everyone's probably here. But just know, and we can go into this more, I haven't touched on any of the performance side, the health, the biometrics, but if you want to be the best person in the day, you need to focus on the night, and that's how you do it. So I'm going to touch on my 2 biggest points of sleep. So by far, if there's one thing you can take away from this, from a thought process, or I guess from something measurable, the most important thing that will change your sleep is consistency in your bedtime and your wake time. Nothing will top that. There's no hack, there's no product, there's none of that. None of that stuff is going to make even close to a dent comparatively to consistency in your wake time and your bedtime. So that's the one piece I'll touch on. The other side is the mentality, and I think this is the piece that's getting a little murky over the last few years, because we went from not caring about sleep, and now this pendulum is swinging really far, and it's creating this obsession with getting the best sleep possible. But the way to frame sleep is the ultimate form of peace. You will never stress your way into more sleep. So as soon as that obsession, or as soon as that focus becomes a stressor, now it's probably actually detrimental to sleep. So the tip I have is giving yourself some grace. And what I mean by that is understanding that there's going to be good nights of sleep, there's going to be bad nights of sleep. It's not going to be perfect, but one of the most, probably the most important trait in life is adaptability. So your sleep schedule, your sleep process needs to be adaptable. When it starts becoming rigid and stressful, and you're overanalyzing things, and you're waking up and checking sleep scores, and that's dictating how you feel, now we're going in a negative direction. All right. So those are the two pieces: is consistency on one end of the data side, and then your mindset and understanding that sleep is peace and relaxation. It is not an app and numbers and data. All right. All right, so consistency in bedtime and wake time. This is the one thing you can't hack. And I'm going to go into a little bit of like why, but if you're going to focus on anything, specifically the wake time is probably the most important piece because that kind of sets the rhythm. But Sleep is about, you have different cycles of sleep, right? You have your non-REM sleep and your REM sleep. You guys know what REM sleep stands for? Rapid eye movement. It's kind of boring. You think it'd be something more scientific, but literally your eyes are moving back and forth rapidly in this stage of sleep. All your muscles are basically paralyzed except for your breathing muscles and your eye muscles, because that's when we do most of our dreaming. So it's a good thing that we're paralyzed. We'll be running around the room. But where people get caught up is they start focusing on different types of sleep. So you have your non-REM sleep, you have your REM sleep. Think about your non-REM sleep as like your physical regeneration sleep. So when you bust your butt today on the hill and you go to bed tonight, your non-REM sleep, specifically your deep sleep, is where you're going to recover. Your muscles rejuvenate, tissue rebuilds, and that's really important. So think about that as physical regeneration. So stages 1, 2, and then when you see deep sleep on your trackers, that's in the non-REM category. The REM category is, think of that as like your mental reset. So that's when we regulate our emotion. That's when we dream, like I said. That's when you become consistent. And that's when I talked about those subconscious reactions and emotions, that's when your brain resets and allows you to be consistent and repetitive every single day. Okay, so non-REM and REM sleep. The thing is, one is not more important than the other, right? And I compare it to like a band. So people focus on how much REM sleep did I get, how much deep sleep did I get. It's more about this portfolio of sleep, the proportions of the different sleep. And the only way to do that is through a full solid night of sleep, right? So I compare it to a band because it's like, you can't make up for a bad drummer with more guitar, right? Like they're not the same, and vice versa. If you have a great drummer and someone that plays a guitar that's not very good, you can't just keep throwing more drums at it to fix the problem. And that's how sleep is. They all play different roles. They're all equally important. You need different proportions of each. And so where the consistency comes in play is you have 2 cycles that allow you or make you want to fall asleep. And when these become unregulated or mismatched is when things fall apart. So you have your sleep drive cycle, which is basically this chemical that builds up in your brain, adenosine, that makes you feel sleepy. As it builds up throughout the day, it makes you feel sleepy. It's actually what caffeine blocks. It doesn't allow you to, the receptor to actually absorb this chemical, so you don't feel as tired. Caffeine's really good at making us not feel tired as opposed to giving us actual energy. That's actually like the main mechanism. So you have your sleep drive cycle that this chemical builds up throughout the day, and hopefully at 9 o'clock it peaks and you fall asleep and things are great. At the same time, you have your circadian rhythm, right? You guys have heard of circadian rhythm, and the circadian rhythm is basically our relationship with the earth, light, our hormone peaks, like melatonin, cortisol, and how these change throughout the day. And so ideally, your cortisol spikes in the morning, you wake up, which is totally normal, a good thing. And then throughout the day, towards the evening, we wind down, we don't get as much light, melatonin starts to peak, and that peak of melatonin and that chemical buildup of our sleep drive cycle, they align, and we fall asleep perfectly, right? Why you can't hack the consistency piece is because our sleep cycles, right, those types of sleep, are consistent with our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm takes weeks to change. You guys have probably felt this when you go overseas. And so those cycles stay consistent to your normal times. Our sleep drive cycle starts when we wake up. That chemical starts building up, and it starts at that point. So let's say you sleep in an extra 2 hours, right? Or let's say you wake up 2 hours early, okay? You're going to cut off the last 2 hours of the night, right? So at that point, when you wake up early, your sleep drive cycle starts, but your circadian rhythm is consistent to what it used to be. And all of a sudden, there's a 2-hour misalignment. So you basically we call it social jet lag. You're giving yourself this mismatch of these 2 cycles that cause you to fall asleep, and then that night you probably can't fall asleep because now they're misaligned. And then the other piece of it is with those sleep cycles. You have your REM sleep and non-REM sleep. Your REM sleep happens the second half of the night. As the night goes on, more and more of it happens throughout the second half of the night. Your deep sleep happens more the first half of the night, right? So think about your physical regeneration the first half and your mental reset on the second half. And there's some of each in both, but it gradually ramps up. And so when you wake up 2 hours early, you're cutting off the majority of your REM sleep, that sleep that resets your brains and your emotion, right? Vice versa, if you go to bed 2 hours late, now you're cutting off the first half of the night. You're cutting off your non-REM deep sleep cycles. So you don't start at square one. You jump into the sleep cycles that you would normally be in at that time of night, right? So Either way, if you wake up early or go to bed late and cut 2 hours off, you're missing out on different types of sleep, which both play an equally important but different role in the body. And so there's no way to hack inconsistency in your wake time and bedtime. Does that make sense? That was a lot of sciencey jargon, but any questions on that? So,
What I heard was you can't make up for missed sleep. Is that right?
100. Yeah, sleep debt is a thing where if you are underslept, you'll be more tired, and you can help reduce the impact of that on the next day, but there's no going backwards. It doesn't make up for what's already happened. What's done is done, and just move forward. And that's a good point. If you ever have a horrible night's sleep, the best thing to do is nothing. And what I mean by that is, if you don't normally take naps, probably don't take a nap because it might impact that night's sleep. I'm not saying naps are bad, but if you're not sure, that night's sleep is much more important to get you back on track. Don't over-caffeinate, because that, again, could impact that night's sleep. The best thing to do is do nothing. I played fullback, and so I always use the term, put your face in the fan. That's what you used to say, like on an ISO. You're like, imagine you have a fan, and you stick your face in it. It's like, this is going to suck, but you're just going to go in there and try to blow it up. Same thing with the bad night's sleep. Stick your face in the fan. No, it's going to suck for this day. Power through. You've done much harder stuff in your life, but that's going to take an issue that maybe is 8 hours long and get you back on track. If you don't do that, it's going to cascade into multiple days and have a longer-term impact, and so you're much better off just dealing with it short-term. Yeah.
I think about my kids and their sleep cycles, and they love actually going to sleep. And I think about when they're younger, they fight it, and then when they're teenagers, they're sort of fight it, and now later they're all in on it. So what's the best way to talk to them, or say, or even teach them? And I think I'm listening. But the best way to teach them after going out for a night, and
They would never do that, but just in theory.
just
Yeah.
just in case.
Um,
And saying, hey, listen, for the next 72 hours, this is what we're doing.
I mean, I think, and this is like,
Is it even that time frame, or is it
of the impact of that?
just getting right back on track?
Yeah, no, it can be a short-term, solution if you get right back on track, and like I said, don't overcompensate. But I think that's the hard piece, and I think when I go talk to teams, is the challenge is why, if it's not a priority, why not? And I think figuring out and understanding, like, any goal somebody's trying to accomplish, literally anything besides trying to break a record for the least amount of sleep, any goal you're trying to accomplish is made easier with optimal sleep. So sometimes it's about, with your kids, communicating in a way and learning with relatable information. When you put the pieces together, a light bulb goes off. But a lot of times with especially sleep, things are thrown at people and you're told it's important, and you don't really know why. But then all of a sudden, like if your kids play lacrosse, for example, and you start talking about reaction times and sprint speeds and accuracy, all of a sudden they care. So I think that's the biggest thing with any behavior change, same with nutrition, is how do you relate to them in a way or provide information that they care about? Because if they're goal-oriented and they want to accomplish something, they'll do what it takes. It's just, I think it's your job to get the information to make them care.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like if let's say you consistently wake up at 5:30, right? Like that's your schedule. Bed at 10, up at 5:30.
Yeah.
If I wake up at 4:30, which I do sometimes, am I better off getting out of bed and starting my day, or should I just lie there and wait until 5:30?
So I would say the answer has nothing to do with like the actual amount of sleep. One of the most detrimental things you can do is sit there in your bed and think about how you can't sleep. And so if you're there for more than 10 minutes, no matter what the time of night is, you want to exit that space. You want to get out of there. And because our brain is very, very good at connecting environments with feelings. And so the more you have a feeling of being anxious and not being able to sleep, thinking about, I can't sleep, it's going to mess up my next day, and think about all the negative, repercussions of that, that emotion is going to be connected more and more with your bed and your sleep space. And so I would get out of that space, do something, take your mind off it, until you're tired again, or potentially you do get up. But I would say your relationship with that space is more important than that 45 minutes that you could make up for.
That's the middle of the night.
Yeah, and that's what's hard is on that mindset piece, the best thing you can do, your bed should be used for two things: sleep and one other thing. That's a different mastermind. We're not going to go on that path. But because anything you do, whether it be texts, emails, any of that stuff, and it could be positive, right? It could be stuff that like your friends are texting you. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but at a evolutionary or foundational level, our brain's interpreting that as a threat, like a stressor, something to do. If you think about way back in the day, like as we were evolving or our brain was evolving, if there was anything you had to do, it's probably a necessity. And so the more things you do in your bed, the less it becomes that sacred place of rest. You want every time you get into bed to be like, lights out, I'm falling asleep, and your brain knows that is a sacred place for sleep. That's like your sanctuary. It's fine to do some of that stuff, and there's ways to, adjust screen times and all that stuff, but it's more about that relationship with your bed and the space.
And, I always was a good sleeper.
Yeah.
And then I got a sleep app to check my metrics.
Yes.
And I'm very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to bed thinking, how am I going to do on
Right.
this thing the next morning?
Yeah.
And instead of a peaceful thing, it became a stress.
Yep.
And also, you can even edit the results. So I was cheating in the morning. Because like a better sleep, you can eliminate friendship.
Well, now we're going down an integrity issue here. I don't know.
But hang on, it was only between me and the app.
Got it,
The
got it.
thing is, I could not sleep. And this happened for about 3-4 months. My sleep was ruined. Got rid of the app, turned it off, and went right back to bed like it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just one of those metrics ruined to peace.
So there's an explosion. It's called an orthosomniac, and coming from ortho, the Greek word of to fix, and so there's an explosion in orthosomniacs where people are obsessed with fixing their sleep, and that's a great point. Is sleep is something that if you're getting enough sleep, you feel good, you have a good relationship, you don't have issues. It's not like fitness. I think fitness, if you're a runner, you can continuously get better. What can I do? Where's that 1%? How can I get faster? And it's pretty linear. A lot of times the more work, the more focus you put in on it, the better it gets. Sleep is not like that. Sleep is one of those things that it's almost like a pass-fail. If you're sleeping really well and you feel good, don't continuously go down the rabbit hole of trying to perfect it. It's already great. The box is checked. And you can actually, you can drive yourself a little crazy just becoming obsessive with that. And the other thing is I think some of the wearables are a little misleading. For example, I was talking about this yesterday, like with the Whoop, for example, the way the algorithm is written, not necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to know, and I think it drives people nuts sometimes. Like your sleep score is regulated, right? So let's say you're at 99% in the green sleep score, and you do that exact same thing every single night. Eventually that 99% will become 50% because it self-regulates to your norms. And so most in the sleep score is like the better you do over time, the lower the score will get. And most people, like on that's a 1 to 100 example, would be around 50. That's a normal great day of sleep, the longer you do it. And so I think sometimes, like when you look at scores in this like grading scale, that's not portraying the right image. It's more about, did I sleep enough? You can look at some of the biometrics, but if you're getting enough sleep and you're consistent bedtime and wake time and you feel good, like you're golden. Like that's a great place to be. Don't start trying to get too granular on that stuff because you're doing everything you can, and that's the way the body is supposed to be. Like we weren't meant to be thinking about like our sleep scores and waking up and checking. If you wake up and check an app and that's the first thing you do, I would say that's probably a bad sign. The best usage of those sleep trackers is reflective behavior change. So like, let's say, for example, I started a new workout program, marathon training program. You reflect after a week or a month and you see how that impacted your sleep. Or you got a new mattress, or you started wearing a nasal strip, for example. You can implement behaviors, reflect, see how they change your sleep on a macro level. But the last thing you want to do is wake up, check your sleep score, let that number dictate your day. Like you've done amazing things on low sleep. Michael Jordan used to go play golf, have 7 beers, go play a game a night and score 60 points. Like you can get through a lot. Don't let that number dictate what you can do. Like when we work with athletes, 3 or 4 days before competition, we have them turn off their trackers because you got to get it done regardless. Doesn't matter if your sleep score is 1 or 100. There's really no value in you knowing that score. So I think just with everybody here, everyone's trying to accomplish big stuff. Like don't wake up and let a number dictate how you feel, because you got to get it done that day no matter what. And I think that's when we focus on sleep. It doesn't mean like use sleep as an excuse and not do things. It means understand it, create the environment, allow yourself the chance to have success, but still get after it in the day.
What are some of the factors? I use the score in reverse, where like if I feel like death, but I have a good sleep score, I'm just like, oh, you're fine, keep going.
Yeah.
When it's the opposite, I'm curious, are there any common factors that if you wake up feeling really, really rested, but your sleep score is garbage, are there commonalities amongst nights like that, where like this may be like this is a common factor that will tank your sleep score, and if you wake up feeling rested, like good for you, but this is what happened?
Yeah, there's definitely commonalities, but they're very individualized, you know. So, but they are a good indicator. If you wake up, you feel good, you slept good, and you have like a pretty substantial change in like your heart rate variability or your resting heart rate, that's a good sign. It could be illness, it could be, you know, overreaching for training. There's a lot of things could be going on. A lot of times, viruses, respiratory stuff will actually pop up a couple days before you feel it. So it could kind of give you a little alert to what's going on. But like I said, you know, think about like, were there any changes, anything different, and that's a good time. I would say that's a healthy reflection, where it's not like, you know, making you feel worse.
As a baseline, I'm sure for everybody it's a little bit different, but what is...
I just can't stop laughing at your shirt, but go ahead. If you don't know what it is, you can ask him later.
So what's a good baseline sleep? Like,
How much?
yeah, or metrics, or how much REM, how much deep, how much light?
Yeah, so, yeah,
HRV, what's a good...
that's great. Yeah, so snapshot, the amount of sleep, I would say, is probably one of the most important metrics to know. They did 2 studies last year separately, one at Harvard, one in Japan, and they put people in a lab for about a month. Everyone was in their 30s. Let them get acclimated to the lab, and then they let them sleep as long as they wanted. They had no idea the sun. They had no connection to the outside world. And that middle mark was about 8.5 hours, was the optimal amount of sleep. And in the sleep world, when you say optimal, that means how long does your body want to sleep and just wake up naturally. And so ideally, it's probably a little more than you think. The minimum, the recommended minimum is 7, right? And so like usually when I say that, everyone here is like, all right, I'm gonna get 7 hours. But like minimum means like that's like a bad night, right? And then you also have the people that are like, oh, I'm good on 6. I get 6 and I crush it. And there's a difference between being acclimated to 6 and being optimal. Those are very different things. Most people are acclimated because in this room, statistically, let's say there's like 75 people here. Less than a quarter of one person would statistically be able to function optimally off of 6 hours. So about 0.5% of the population has some genetics that allow them to function optimally. So I would say 7's the minimum, 8 is great, and it's one of those things where you'd much rather be a little overshooting than undershooting. So that's a good place to start. And the other interesting thing with that study is almost everyone in that study was sleeping over 7 hours when they came in. When they gave them the chance to sleep as long as they wanted, almost everyone slept over 10 hours because even though they were getting 7, their body actually was craving more sleep. The other metrics, so HRV just means heart rate variability, and so that's essentially the distance, the length of time in between your heartbeats. And it seems kind of weird, but the more relaxed you are, and in turn, the more adaptable you are to stress, right? Like, you know, the more ready your body is, the more irregular those times get. So your heart actually beats more irregularly the more relaxed we are. So HRV is a very individualized metric. You'll see it on the Whoop, Oura Ring, all those things, very individualized. So with that one, it's more about change. So everyone's baseline is completely different. Like I sit around 65. My wife, for example, is around 180, way different. So it's more about, is it going in a positive direction as opposed to the actual number, super individualized. And then kind of the same thing with resting heart rate. The only difference is resting heart rate is a little more regulated where, yes, everyone's different, but for the most part, lower is better. And so trying to kind of chip away at that resting heart rate, and that's a really good indicator of like your stress levels as well.
There's not like a better HRV. Like higher is not necessarily better.
It is better, but the baseline, it's so individualized. So for you, better might be 20 to 25 where you're at. For Michael Phelps, for example, his is 225, right? So it just depends on like your makeup, and it doesn't necessarily. Some people just theirs is lower just naturally, and so I wouldn't like comparatively do it. I would just see where am I at, and can I increase that score.
You talked at the beginning about consistency. I work hard to get 7 hours of sleep, but I also do a lot of nighttime activities. And I'm not a morning person, so I vary my morning wake up time and all that based on the 7 hours of sleep. Is that consistent? Does that count, or does it depend?
Does it count?
You're not in bed by 10:30 and getting 7 hours. If I go to bed at 1:30 or 2, but sleep till 9, am I okay? Or
You're okay. Yeah, it's not like, is it perfect? No, but you still like. I wouldn't say don't get sleep because you're going to bed later. Yeah. And there's variance. Like we're talking about. We're really trying to dial it in here. So if you're always getting 7 hours, like that's great to start. And then the other point of this is like I'm not sure what the night activities are, but I guess I should have prefaced with the number one most important factor or data piece of longevity is your community and your relationships, right? So when your obsession or your focus on sleep starts taking away from relationships, you stop doing things that allow you to connect with people, have purpose, and all these other things. That's probably not worth it in the long run. And on that same breath, there's very few people. A lot of times, sleep issues pop up, and it actually has nothing to do with sleep. When people have purpose in their life, they have great relationships and community, a lot of times things fall into place. And a lot of times, anxiety naturally rises through the day to the night. Our brain works like that. A lot of times, maybe things that you're unhappy with or things that are stressful in your life, it just pops up as a sleep issue. But it's actually a good time to do some reflection of like, if you're waking up or you can't sleep and you're continuously thinking about the same things, think about the impact and take some time for yourself and actually think about the root cause as opposed to, I'm going to go get some melatonin. I'm going to go get a supplement or order something. It's more about, like, let's actually do some reflection, look in the mirror and see what the root cause of that issue is. So relationships, community, doing things, being around people you love is number one. And there's times where sacrificing some sleep is definitely worth it. Last night, for example, like that's a great example. Like if you were, even though I did go to bed a little bit earlier, yeah.
First of all, how many people here get 8 hours of sleep? Wow.
That's good.
Anybody get 9? Wow.
How many people didn't get 8 hours before, let's say 5 years ago, that do now? Yeah, good amount. It's cool. It's cool. The shift.
How many people here get 7 hours of sleep? 6 or less? I gotta work on it. Todd, what about naps?
Naps.
Naps factor in.
Yeah. So naps can be a useful tool. One, I'd say if you were a good napper, right? So knowing I take naps and it's not going to impact that night's sleep. So I would say the night sleep is the most important because you have that gradual change in sleep cycles throughout the night. So like 6 hours of sleep at night is not the same as 6 hours at night in 2 hour nap. That's not the same because you're not going to get those same proportions of cycles of sleep. And so I would say naps can be useful. It can be a short-term use. Sometimes it can increase cognitive function like afterwards for a short time, but it's more of a Band-Aid than a solution. So use it sparingly. So like if even if it's going to affect that night's sleep, it could be something where you didn't sleep well, you have some big presentation or an event, maybe you use it for that, but I wouldn't make it a habit every time you kind of have a poor night's sleep if it's going to affect the night.
You hear like the term power nap and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Is there a benefit to like a 20-minute nap?
Yeah, there's definitely on the cognitive side, like it can help like your brain function short term, especially if you're really tired. So it can bring you kind of back up to your baseline, but everyone's a little different, and then it's like how fast can you fall asleep? And so it can be useful, but it's more of like a Band-Aid or like having caffeine. It's like a short-term fix type thing. What was I going to say? Now go ahead.
my wife is a super light sleeper.
Yeah.
Just having a kid, so my daughter's 6 now. She falls asleep, but super light sleeper. Tries all sorts of things. Everything's set prescription.
Yeah.
Will, like, if she really can't sleep, will take Benadryl or whatever.
Yeah.
What would you suggest on a person's a light sleeper or has difficulty sleeping?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of go down the list. When someone's a light sleeper, it's like, okay, dissecting. Like, what are the incidents in the night that makes them wake up, right? So there's a lot of different factors, but there's a lot of also solutions if you take it step by step or piece by piece. For example, I think one of the most impactful things if you're sleeping with somebody is a memory foam mattress, like which have been around for a long time. But think about it, like if they get up in the night 3 times, all of a sudden now you're getting up double the amount you normally would. So just like little things like that. And then maybe you're super sensitive to sound, like earplugs can be a solution. Maybe it's the blackout shades, eye mask. Like there's quite a few things you can go down and try, and I think it's more about investigating like what the cause is, even to the point of like getting up to go to the bathroom, like having hydration strategies, drinking water earlier in the day and tapering off. Like I would say there's quite a few things that you can do before you take drastic measures, and I think a lot of people like jump to the quicker solution because it is also horrible, like when you can't sleep, and so people are sometimes a little bit desperate. So I would say, and we can talk more too, but piece by piece, thinking about, okay, what's going on, what's causing disturbances.
You talked about the importance of consistency in wake time and sleep time. I'm sure that it's different for everybody, but is there a margin of error that you would target, like within 30 minutes?
30 minutes is usually he asked what's the margin of error on consistency. And so 30 minutes is a good rule of thumb. And actually the 30-minute mark is about where, when you look at biometrics like your heart rate variability, every 5 minutes outside of those 30 minutes, we can almost measurably and predictably see the impact it's going to have on things like your resting heart rate and your heart rate variability. So kind of after that 30-minute mark, the further away from that consistency-wise, the more, I would say, stress your body's under from a physiological perspective.
So last year I was at a health event in LA. There was this, I forget the guy's name. He was talking about how sleep is genetic and there's like
Yeah.
pattern like animals. Is that like a real thing?
Yeah, some people, there's different genetic types that are more morning people and more night people, but it's still a little up in the air as far as like the testing, and so you can probably feel it, but on the flip side, everything that's been seen, people have been able to basically train themselves to adapt to whatever they want to be with consistency in like the wake time and bedtime. So it's not abnormal that you might be or gravitate more towards the morning or night, but really that's more in line with the consistency in which your days look like. Like I think I'm naturally more of a night person in my family, but there's, I've trained myself to be earlier. A lot of questions on this one. Go.
Just one more. Does snoring impact your sleep? Like,
Definitely, yeah. And I think the most underutilized test out there is a sleep study, at-home sleep study, because sleep apnea is like, imagine mini strokes, right? It's small deprivation in oxygen for your brain, and so snoring can be a pretty big symptom. And regardless, snoring is some type of dysfunctional breathing pattern, right? Like you shouldn't be snoring. So they're like $200, and you can just, it's one of those things like check the box and make sure nothing's going on. I believe that those should be like blood work, right? Like when you look at long-term, especially brain health, neurodegenerative stuff, sleep has a direct correlation, and so why not get that done just like you would blood work every couple of years or 5 years?
Does two things real quick. Be mindful of your time too. One, eating late at night or eating anything, how does that impact sleep? And two, I would love for you to talk about your products.
Yeah. So eating late at night.
The third part of that was melatonin, like sleep aids.
Yeah.
Do you believe in melatonin or?
Yeah. So
Food, sleep aids, products.
So I love the 3-2-1 rule. So 3 hours no food, 2 hours no water, 1 hour no screens. That's a kind of a cool rule of thumb. And the reason being is just giving your body some time to digest. I love like an after dinner walk. get your blood sugar regulated. When you eat really close to bed, it tends to cause more people to wake up more often. It also can fluctuate your blood sugar. And so Oura Ring is actually, now they actually have a partnership where they do blood glucose monitoring. And some early stuff I've seen is when people have, especially like you have a high glycemic meal close to bed, and it spikes your blood sugar, and it kind of, if you look, it'll cause kind of a ripple effect. And people tend to have a lot of disturbances when that starts fluctuating a lot. So giving your body some time to digest and relax, and also I think most people just subjectively feel better in the morning when you allow that time. So if you give your time a little, or give your body a little time, the sleep, like melatonin and stuff. So like melatonin is interesting because it hasn't been shown, there's not a lot of negative side effects or anything like that, but it's a hormone produced in your body. And so I don't want to say anything negative, and I'm not an MD, but like jumping to that is usually the problem I have. Most people, melatonin is produced with an absence of light. So most people, have the ability to produce plenty of melatonin. It's usually not an issue where like something's wrong with your production. It's more about the environment. And so I think focusing on the environment and the behaviors is a much healthier approach, a much long-term sustainable approach, because you will become dependent on it. And then anytime we're introducing things that's exogenous, like or hormones out of our body, it's not the same natural rhythm. So usually it's like, look at your environment, control the light, wind down, use candles at night, and people tend to get a much better response. And then there's some new stuff coming out too with melatonin, particularly when people take it orally. In the morning, there's super physiological levels in your system still, meaning there's still higher levels than your body would naturally produce in a normal night in the morning still. So
That might feel groggy.
yeah, that can create some grogginess. So think about like the setup, the environment, making your body produce those rhythms. In general with everything, like if your body can stay on its natural cycle and production, that's going to be a better course.
Really important point to that, coming from the supplement side of the world.
Yeah.
The original test on sleep was melatonin reduction, 300 micrograms. Marketing being marketing.
Yeah.
When everyone came out with it, one company comes out with 300 micrograms, comes out with a study says, I can beat that, same price, 1 milligram. And now people are just pumping 10 milligrams.
Yeah.
And it's not a great place to start.
Yeah, so in Europe too, like a lot of other countries, it's a prescription. You can't just go to the pharmacy. And then they also did studies on U.S. melatonin supplements and the inaccuracy of the dosing, and they were anywhere from negative 85% of what's listed to 435% of what was listed. And so if you are, I'm not, always, it's just understanding your sources, what you're doing, not just like throwing stuff at the wall hoping it works. Understand that your body has the ability to do that if you do the right things leading up to bedtime.
Do you have a recommendation to the at-home sleep apnea study that you mentioned?
Sleep Doctor is like the biggest website. It's super easy. We're partners with them. So it's affiliation, but I love the at-home. It's super simple, a wrist, a little chest thing, but your environment also plays a huge role in how you sleep. So with clinical stuff, people go to a lab, a more in-depth sleep study, which it's useful for a lot of clinical stuff, but you really want the metrics of in your home, in your space. And I think that's really useful for that like first step.
Is there any science behind, as our body ages, less sleep?
Yeah.
I feel post 50, mid 50, 60.
Yep.
I'm just like, sleeping less.
Yeah. Our sleep needs gradually taper down. When kids are young, they need a ton of sleep, and then as you age, past 50, it gradually goes down. But even with that tapering, that 7-hour mark is still usually like as low as you want to go. But it's not abnormal to feel like you need a little less. Yeah. Right. And then also people, the older you get, the harder it is to get into some of those deep sleep cycles. Like it's when you're younger, and we've probably all been there where like you immediately get into deep sleep. It feels like you just fall asleep, like you don't even think about it. And then as you get older, stress, different things happen, and it becomes more of a challenge.
So maybe 3, 2, 1, and lack of caffeine and later caffeine.
Yeah.
Things to try to get the
Yeah.
body to sleep more.
Yeah, caffeine lingers, is long half-life, like 5-6 hour half-life. So, if you're having 300 milligrams at 11 or 12, you'll still have 100 milligrams in your system at bedtime. So, how How much? I don't want to go like too far over. I don't know what the timeline is.
Sorry, you're killing it. Tell us about your products.
Yeah, so I guess, with Dream, like I said, I mean, like, this is really my passion, is like helping people, and like the messages, and it's the coolest thing when we see how, like, when you fix someone's sleep, how much better their life gets. And that's, that's what's super motivating for us, and why, like, obsessed with it. But we started off with sleep masks, and so I think it's one of the most underutilized tools. And the reason being is it's it's very hard to study something that's like a more of a habitual behavior-based thing. And really what it does is allows you to recreate an environment anywhere. So that's like my favorite product, and it's blackout. We've done 5 iterations. And the one we just came out with is awesome. Unbiasedly, I would tell you if it wasn't awesome, but it's awesome. And so, we have sleep masks, blue light blocking glasses, which is a great way to, like, realistically, phones, screens, very difficult to get away from right now. But something like blue light glasses can be really useful to mess with that, or to minimize that. Mouth tape is our biggest selling product, and you've probably seen it. Unfortunately, like, when things get a lot of attention and people start selling it, some of the marketing gets mixed up. But it sounds like exactly what it is. You tape your mouth shut at night, because the most optimal way to breathe is through our nose. We should be basically breathing through our nose anytime we're not eating, talking, or really intense exercise. And so the mouth tape just, basically reminds you to breathe through your nose. The other thing is our breath, as you've probably seen with breath work, our breath is the steering wheel to our nervous system. Where your breath goes, your nervous system will follow. That's not like an opinion. I think with breath work, people sometimes they don't buy into it. They're kind of hesitant. It takes a lot of intention to really work on it. But if you slow your breath down, and when I say that, I mean if you have long, slow exhales, longer exhales than your inhales, you will downregulate your nervous system, and vice versa. Your exhales get more powerful, and your inhales get more powerful, and your exhales are shallow. You're going to upregulate your nervous system. And so I think understanding the power of breath. So when we start breathing through our nose, the mouth tape, a lot of times I think it actually allows people they have to regulate their breathing, and you realize how relaxing and impactful that is. And so we developed all different ones. We have a small one that's stretchy for, like, the person that's freaked out, and you can talk with it and drink water. And I know it's weird at first. We have one with, like, an anti-aging collagen biotin vitamins in it, and then we have, like, a normal one for facial hair and things like that. So that's our biggest product. We just launched Second Wind nasal strips. So we've been working on that for, like, a long time, 17 months. We actually tested the first prototype at rim to rim to rim last year, and we've been working super hard. But it's our patented nasal strip. And so the idea is when you're breathing out of your nose, that reduces the amount of stress your body's under, it reduces the amount of energy. And then the name of the game is energy conservation. So most people wear them at night, and that's just to allow you to breathe through your nose easily, like I talked about. About 80% of the population has a deviated septum, and so a lot of people have trouble breathing out of their nose. So dilates your nasal cavities, allows you to get more airflow in your nose, and in turn, it keeps your nervous system more relaxed, allows you to utilize oxygen better, and it allows you to use less energy doing similar things. So, like, with bouts of exercise, for example, you come up the hill today, and you're at the top. If you can get back to nasal breathing more efficiently and faster, you're going to conserve a ton of energy. And think about over the 2-hour course of time, how much energy is that? And for an athlete, like, over the course of a game, all those bouts of calming your nervous system, if you store all that up, think about the difference in the fourth quarter comparatively to someone that isn't aware of their breath. And so hopefully you all have those in your bag. And so the one thing, I think, try them out today on the hill, but there's alcohol swabs in there. It's important just to get the oil off your nose, okay? And then a couple tricks of putting them on is, you want them about halfway up your nose, kind of in that triangle of your nose, and then give it a little space. So when you hold it up to your nose, give it a little space up from the top of your nose to the actual plastic piece or the nylon piece, and then you just push it on the sides of your nose, and then massage in kind of the adhesive for about 10 seconds, just to make sure it's fully pressed down, and it'll be on there for a long time. But I think a lot of people will be shocked at how much better they can breathe, and the goal would be to breathe out of your nose the most time you can. And Coach Chris will probably be coaching you up on that as we go. But and then we have silk pillowcases with, like, we put silver ion threading in there, so the silk doesn't absorb moisture, keeps you cool, eliminates bacteria, and we got some more products coming out this year. But yeah, that's kind of the whole whole thing. Yeah, Dream Recovery, Dream Performance and Recovery. Website's just dreamrecovery.io.
Tape is spectacular. I mean, I would never have thought that would happen. I mean, my wife never sleeps without it, ever, not one night. I'm not as consistent, but it definitely helps me. It's a little, maybe a little weird at first, you know, but like, it just forces you to breathe through your nose, you know? It's a really good tool.
Yeah.
And their product's really good. You like it, Les?
Every night I have to wear it. It's a total life changer for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, and that was my journey too. I've been doing it for 6 years, and I've used like all this other stuff, and I was like, this isn't, you know, I was using like random stuff, you know, tape, like athletic tape. Yeah. So.
So that's my question is, I've been doing it for about 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and now I can't, like, I didn't have a problem before, but I wanted to optimize, so now if I go somewhere and I forget it, I feel like I can't sleep without it, and I'm sure part of it's like that anxiety mental thing.
Yeah.
But like, even for this trip, I mean, I use like a roll, like
Yep.
right now. Like,
We got
am I
some.
just creating?
Yeah, I think I know a guy.
Or like, I just can't sleep anymore without it.
So that's a good point.
I use like a.
I mean, you probably forgot it because you used a cheap one. It wasn't as good. Your brain wasn't optimal, you know. No, but that's a good point though, because like I said, adaptability is a huge asset. So like with nighttime routines, the biggest question I get is, what's your nighttime routine? And I talk about sauna for sure, but I intentionally am not super rigid, because you want to be adaptable. You want to be thrown in an event with 40 people, you know, at a hotel and be able to fall asleep wherever you're at. So I think my two non-negotiables are the eye mask and the mouth tape, because I think that creates the most consistent environment and it's easy for me to replicate. And so it's something to think about. But the other piece is like, everyone, if you're breathing out of your mouth, like there's a lot of different reasons for it. So it could be one of those things where structurally, like your mouth is just designed in the way that it's not staying closed. So it's not necessarily a bad.
Logically, unless you do something else, like widening your palate or like
Yeah.
I sleep really good with it, and I probably need it.
Right, so it could be just something that some people can train themselves to not use it, which is amazing, but depending on why, it's hard to tell. And so that could be just, you know, the way you're structured. I don't want to go like mess up the timeline, so I'll keep taking questions, but you can cut it off.
Yeah, any one more question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Just how do you get over?
Yeah, I'll also be here, so I mean,
How do you get over the tape? I tried it, and then at midnight,
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's like anything, you know, like it's just like getting comfortable with it. But I would say our Dream strips, they're called. They're small. Most tape is stretchy side to side, two-way stretch. Ours is stretchy up and down. So like that's a great place to start, because it's just like a reminder. And so then you kind of get used to it. And that's what I use. And you don't need the big one. It's more about, you want to breathe out of your nose, right? So there's no benefit to doing anything bigger or beyond just allowing that to happen. And so I would start with the small one and go from there.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah. Thanks.
Can't go like this. I can't breathe out of my mouth. Just heard a great lecture about sleep from Todd Anderson. I mean, I'm a little bit sleep deprived. I've never really focused on it. I didn't realize how important sleep is to performance overall, not just athletic performance, but like work performance, cognitive, brain. What was interesting is that session had the most amount of questions of any session. And no matter what, everybody has to sleep. You'll die if you don't sleep. The one thing that I'm going to implement, I'm going to work on the amount of sleep that I get. I only get probably around 6 to 7. I want to get to like 7.5 to 8, 7 being the minimum, but I have to get more consistent. I go to sleep at all different hours. I really want to get a much better routine around sleep of when I go to sleep, when I wake up, and also what I do before I go to bed. Because I like to eat late right before I go to bed, and that's a big no-no. So there's certain things I have to do to improve my routine and increase my time.
So we're just wrapping up Jesse Itzler's Mastermind. Talking went super well. It's cool to see business leaders, entrepreneurs, and how people are starting to come around to the idea of optimizing sleep and to make them a better leader, business person. And I feel like you know, the trajectory of that has changed quite a bit. So it's really cool to see tons of questions. And so if you're still watching, one, appreciate you still watching. Two, make sure to subscribe and check out some more videos.